Big day of news at Cowboys minicamp. What's next for Micah Parsons and why anybody has to step up and be the adult in the room and get Micah on a Cowboys practice field ASAP, okay? We'll also talk about who's making plays out there and the rest of your Cowboys news of the day. It's time to do this on How About Wow.
The only thing else I got to say is, how about them Cowboys?
Yeah, buddy, I love it. We are in the thick of the things, and training camp is fast approaching in Frisco today. Cowboys minicamp. Let's talk about it, guys. I'm Gavin Dawson from 105.3 The Fan, home of the Cowboys, and New Bear Lesniewski is up north, Kentucky, all-academic offensive lineman turned brilliant writer, as you can see every day at howboutwow.com. What is up, my man?
Yeah, even with one hand, right?
Yep. You're just crushing it. Yeah. Are you a hunt pet guy all the time?
No, but quick digression is my hand. I broke this arm twice the year I had typing class or computer class or whatever it was. So I actually type. I come over some with my right hand. I'm fast. I mean, I'm secretary, admin, whatever the correct term is in 2025. I'm good on the keyboard. But what's wild about this is not being able to use the thumb and the shortcuts and all the stuff that you're just like programmed to do. That muscle memory stuff is just gone.
I feel your pain, dude. I love typing myself. I'm a QWERTY guy. I learned in 7th and 8th grade, and when I'm hurt, it reminds you how important muscle memory is. Okay, we can take a stroll through John Machota's Twitter account here to get updated on the most interesting things from Cowboys minicamp today. First up, I think a long hold-in is coming for Micah Parsons. Here's the news: says he's going to be in Oxnard, but didn't really say if he'll be on the field practicing. I think we're heading for a hold in. I hope it's like what we had today, where at least he's there and he could kind of stay fresh and stay healthy, not risk injury while he waits for the next contract. I think that could make sense as long as he's participating in meetings and stuff. But we can talk about how, hey, it'll be fine. But New Bear, isn't it important, or how important is it that he gets in here with Matt Eberflus and the guys and learns this defense?
It's maybe not as important to him, right? Because he's going to show up in shape and he's going to show up ready to knock people's heads off. But it's insanely important to everyone else. And so many guys at every level of this defense have question marks coming in. It's not just a new scheme, and it's not just new players joining the team. It's guys who have been there and prove it years. Mozzie Smith's trying to prove he's not a bust and he belongs in this league at all. And when you talk about 5, 6, 7, 8-man protection and how that shapes and molds around where Micah Parsons lines up, you might not necessarily think about a defensive tackle that we've all maybe kind of kicked the can down the road on, but it matters to that dude. And it matters to the guys off the ball, especially if Micah's going to play more off the ball. Just like it matters to, you want him to sign Mike Hilton. What if Micah's going to be in the slot blitzing, right? There's all these different things that he wants to get back to and to unlock that true hybrid guy that he is, which is part of the contract negotiation, right? He's not a defensive end. He's not an outside linebacker. He's not an inside linebacker. He's all of the damn things, and he's a corner sometimes too. That was the conversation that took the league by storm when he was Defensive Rookie of the Year, AP1, coming out the gate.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how good he is at all that other stuff, New Bear, but if he wants to get better at it, then being there is the only way to get your muscle memory and your reps in to be, mentally prepared and have a foundation laid for when you get to training camp and you can increase the physicality a little bit. I just do not understand how we don't have a deal yet. Micah said today that he and Jerry actually talked about it a while back and had a handshake deal, and he said, call my guy, my agent, David Mulligetta, and that Jerry has just not picked up the phone and called him to get that done. I understand how important the news cycle and engagement farming is. If Jerry is looking at this like June and July are a dead time for NFL news and we need this Micah carcass to feast on for as long as possible, I guess I get it, but don't let it go into Oxnard, man. You're going to need to get these guys, as you said, the teammates. The timing is going to be different if you're trying to pull a twist or a stunt with a guy like Micah Parsons compared to anybody else in the league. You just can't simulate that.
Well, but it's different for him too. And I think that's the thing that's getting lost in this is there's a reason the Pittsburgh Steelers line TJ Watt up and put him in a sprinter stance over the right tackle and wind him up and let him go. It's because almost all the plays that he makes, drop him back and doing the things that no one else could do in this same type of he gets hurt, right? He gets clipped by a DB or someone else while he's running around, cutting across the field on an interception return, doing these otherworldly things. And it's not just because he's getting older and they're fighting about their own whole day in here in Pittsburgh. It's because they know if he's there and he's lined up doing the muscle memory thing and he's hunting quarterbacks and TFL blowing up running games, dipping and ripping and just ruining game plans, everybody else slots in around him. And, oh, by the way, he's going to be healthy. He's going to be out there 17 times in 17 games. If Micah Parsons is on the right side versus the left side, completely different mirror of your body. If he's playing off the ball, I'm not getting ahead of myself or getting crazy and thinking Eberflus wants this 250-pound dude playing Mike Hilton role. But if Micah Parsons wants to move around and do some different things, even just changing the way that you're punching, changing the way that you're kicking and stepping and doing all of it, it's not just the X's and O's. It's human anatomy with this guy.
There they are out there today, Jerry and Micah chopping it up. I wonder what they were talking about if they didn't talk contract.
On the wall, squirrel in the trees, right? I mean, 30 minutes. And what I was fascinated by is all these pictures that you see, everyone else is just doing the damn thing. Like I was expecting to see a bunch of dudes pointing and hooting and hollering and cat calling and really like it being a scene. And it was really just like two dudes hanging out over nothing to see here. Keep moving, keep doing the damn thing, keep working on your craft. And for all intents and purposes, from all the reports I saw, that's pretty much what happened.
Yeah. I don't know if I buy it. I'm not sure that I buy that they didn't talk contract at all. There's a lot of ways Jerry could take it. Maybe Jerry just took the 30 minutes to tell him stories about how players benefited greatly from being Cowboys for life. I can imagine if Jerry's said it himself, if my lips are moving, I'm selling.
Yeah.
So he talked with Micah with the intent of it affecting the negotiation in one way or another. He needs Micah to want to do this deal without the agent, because with the agent, you're looking at resetting the market and then some. I think, New Bear. I don't know what the number is, but if I'm David Mulugheta, I'm looking at how the Cowboys did the quarterback situation with Dak Prescott. He's at 60 APY. No other quarterback's at 55 APY. So I want that for my client. So if Myles Garrett's 40, I want to be 43, 44. I think the math works out that way, and I can say I'm better at my position than Dak is, and I'm younger than Myles Garrett and TJ Watt. So I haven't really had a significant injury.
I mean, substantially younger. I mean, he's in his mid-20s. Those guys are 30, wrong side of 30. And what you're talking about is potentially the third contract. What's interesting is you've talked a lot about the franchise tag and how the real window here actually kicks down a couple of years, and that's where this stuff gets really dangerous in the years to come. What might be interesting is if Micah is looking at 4, 5, 6, or the agent's trying to get him to get that big number for that, because it's going to reset the bar so much. It's not going to be like what we saw with CD versus Jefferson versus Chase and the guaranteed money versus the average annual value, all kind of going back and forth beyond any incentives or any bonuses. Maybe Jerry's actually saying, why don't we do 3, 3, 4? Why don't we talk about control of whatever the final year, whether it's a 4 or a 5 or a 6? And maybe they're talking about the integrity of the contract relative to how he could be setting himself up for a huge third contract, which is what a lot of dudes don't get to see. And I mean, that's good business.
Yeah, I'm sure Jerry Jones wants more control to spread out the cap hit. And a lot of times as smart agents like, no, we want 3 years. Like 4 to 5 was a massive sticking point for Dak Prescott in both of his negotiations. The Cowboys have wanted, a lot more years and have been unable to do it. Here's a little bit more from Micah on John Machota's Twitter account. Salute to Johnny. Salute to Todd Archer. Did a wonderful job covering camp once again. He said he wants an egoless defensive room that takes constructive criticism. Let me share the screen here. At the end of the day, everyone's bleep stinks. You can't hide it. We're all not perfect. So, I like the sound of that, and I like the sound of, the fact that for the first time in a long time, I think we might have the possibility of two elite pass rushers on the field at the same time. Not only Micah Parsons, but the rookie Donovan Ezeraku, man. And I think the Morning News did an article about him, New Bear. I don't know if you saw that. But this guy's Boston College, a reputation for incredibly detail-oriented players coming out of Boston College. Brian Broaddus was telling me about, like, these guys, they all work hard. They're all technicians at their position. They recruit them well. They coach them up well. Like, this is one of the best developmental programs in all the NCAA Boston College. And that's where Ezeraku's coming out of, who also, by the way, has a supernatural ability to dip and get low and burst. So you're getting the total package. A lot of people feel like he should have been a first-round pick, this Donovan Ezeraku.
Well, and there's a whole bunch of hero worship. I mean, he looks up, wants to emulate, not just want to be like, but he's talking about the conversations that him and Parsons are having, and they're going bowling, and he's talking shit about how no, I'm the 200+ point guy, right? He's got some really interesting juice in terms of the totality of this relationship, and how you're talking about bookends and going back to thinking about where Micah goes, whether it's edge and OLB, however this stuff shakes out, there's a chance these guys spend some time lining up next to each other. And then you start talking about nickel and dime and sub packages and all the fun stuff that they get to do together and really have a whole bunch of fun. As I look like I'm about to have a little bit of a blitz partner here with my buddy jumping in.
Oh, you're getting a little one joining there.
It's a little monster.
In New Bears Den, Pittsburgh. Good evening, sweetheart. How the heck are you doing? New Bear, let me make this point here real quick while you handle up. This is why Micah can't just show up. And we'll talk about Ezeraku, and I think that's important. And Sam Williams is there, and Marshawn Nealon and Dante Fowler. But, if you alluded to it back there, if Micah Parsons does just show up, they'll just tag him. And then every year that he's having to play, you're looking at a situation where an injury could end it, or a turn for the worse all of a sudden could end it. Nobody in football wants to be on a year-to-year deal. These players are trying to get maximum guaranteed dollars. So like $240 million career earnings could turn into $35 million real quickly. So I think if Micah does not hold out or hold in, the Cowboys are going to drag this out and make it hell on them.
I'm actually more concerned about the hell that he's making it on the rest of these guys who are out there in print, in the press, every day, talking about how special their relationships are and how new coach, new coordinator, new scheme, new system, these rookies that you can come in, there is a path. Like, everyone wants to talk about that gauntlet they got to run. I keep focusing on the run up to the bye. And I think maybe the reason I'm so tenacious about him being there for every rep in a training situation is because of how he's going to raise up everyone around him. And there's a real opportunity for this dude to come out with his hair on fire and all these dudes around. If they shock the world in Philly on opening night, those first 10 weeks heading into the bye, there's an opportunity for them to dictate the rest of the year to people. And that doesn't happen if this thing drags out week 2, week 3, and now you're rolling that dude in and you're getting him in game shape. Why are we talking about anything other than accelerating the team at all costs?
Okay, I think we have a pretty good debate here forming, though. You say you're more concerned with the Jerry Jones side of this or the Micah Parsons side of this. You're more concerned with Micah holding out on his teammates. Bro, he is the only player who's a star from his class that does not have a deal. How does that tell you it's his fault?
Dude, because we're also sitting here in this world where the entire history of knowledge that exists for all time is 10 seconds away, and we're acting like people aren't picking up the phone and calling each other. There's so much posturing that's going on right now that, like, you're literally talking about them engagement farming for 30 minutes so everybody can go paparazzi on them. Like, if there's a deal to be done, is it $1 more than Myles Garrett? Do you want to hit free agency again before you turn 30? Like, what are the terms and conditions? And then get this thing done and get your ass on the field and get in the shit with your guys. Because the questions that exist at every level of this defense get answered if he's out there helping them do so.
Okay, so he's insisting on market value. Jerry Jones won't call Mulugeta. Micah Parsons say he and Jerry had a deal, and Jerry said, I'll call your agent, just hasn't called him. Is that true or not? That's he said, she said type of stuff. But yeah, Jerry might be engagement farming the entire summer instead of getting this Micah Parsons deal done because he wants NFL Network and ESPN talking about it constantly, like we're doing right now. This is the point of it. And Jerry is doing it at the expense of the team winning. That's not Micah Parsons doing it. You want Micah Parsons to risk generational wealth? Why? To get on the field with his guys? Nobody in the NFL does that. What players do in the NFL is they support each other when the owners are trying to leverage them to take a bad deal. And so, I just don't understand, New Bear, how you could possibly think this is more Micah Parsons' fault than Jerry Jones' fault.
Because I'm just saying, what star has not gotten paid? So you're overpaid, right? You could argue that CeeDee Lamb is underpaid relative to what they did with Dak. Your line throughout all of this is they're going to pay. They're going to pay more. So I guess the fuckery that's afoot is this. Why are we not just saying 44?
Are you accusing me of bleepery right now?
What I am saying is that if he wants more than Miles and the number is 44, then get it done. I don't need to see his brother and fake Adam Schefter, black Adam Schefter, or any other Adam Schefter that isn't Adam Schefter getting tweeted. Like, if he wants the thing 100% guaranteed, then get it done. If he wants it 90% guaranteed, then get it. It's all, like you said, he said, she said. But if you're taking one side, then this isn't even a fun conversation if I don't take the other side. And I'm not doing that just for the sake of. You
surprised me there. You just surprised me, But
I'm not doing it for the sake of but I'm doing it for the sake of legacy and what we wrote about, earlier in this week and in weeks past and what we're going to, because we have an opportunity here as this team with new coaches. We're talking about the king of summer vibes. We're talking about young Pete Carroll all over again. What did those Seahawks do? They took off, right? Legion of Boom. Before all the let Russ cook stuff, we're talking about Beastquakes and Skittles and dudes you've never heard of. Dudes who were drafted in places that you never thought Richard Sherman was going to become Richard Sherman, right? And becomes one of the guys who sets the standard for corners for a generation. And that defense tilts the whole damn league on its axis. And that whole thing happens because you get a group. It fractures because you let Russ cook. It fractures because you force Schottenheimer to take 30 or 40% of his offense and merge it with a bunch of other. What I'm saying is that this becomes a divisive thing that in year one of this dude that we are talking about being the king of vibes and this team being a vibration, I don't want to see anything get in the way of that when we're talking about George Pickens blowing up and dunking on dudes already. We're talking about the defense really struggling today, but Elam, of all people, making a play. We're talking about Sanborn putting his face in the fan. We're talking about Kenneth Murray talking about coming out and wanting to punch dudes in the face. Like, there are ingredients here. There are still holes. There are still questions, right? But Micah Parsons is the steak. Everyone else is whatever else you're going to put on the plate. He's the main thing. He's the first and second entree. And it's a shitty meal if he's not on the field.
Okay, that's great stuff, man. I was looking for this other tweet. Brian Schottenheimer was asked today, what is going to be your indicator for Dak Prescott having success with your offense in 2025? Like, what are the metrics or the signs you're going to be looking for? He said one word, win. And then he let it go right there. New Bear, when you said letting Russ cook actually got them in trouble, that to me makes these light bulbs come on. Like, is he thinking we don't need yards? We don't need the quarterback being the center of attention. We need to win. And in Seattle, that always meant running and play action to set up the big play. But I think the Cowboys have gotten in trouble and have been falsely convinced that they've been better than they actually are during the Dak Prescott era by putting up big stats in the regular season against inferior competition. And when they got to the playoffs, their inability to be balanced on offense, often tripped him up. But That was my read. What do you think? What's your gut telling you about why Brian Schottenheimer said just win?
Just because I want to win this argument that we're having, I would be remiss if I didn't say everything that I said about Micah Parsons a few minutes ago doesn't also impact the offense. It doesn't also impact Tyler Booker. It doesn't also impact every single level. Ferguson, who wasn't even running with the ones today. There's all these camp battles and things that matter rep by rep by rep. Parsons makes everyone better. And
yeah, he does. There's no doubt, and that is why it is negligent ownership once again to not have a deal with him. You know you're going to cave. You know you're going to give him the most. Why don't you just give it to him now?
But also, how much is it going to take? And this is a whole nother conversation.
Let me also tell you this, okay? While that bleepery with Mike McCarthy was happening shortly before he was let go or didn't get a new contract or whatever, he was, in this state of negotiating or not negotiating with Jerry Jones, and it got bizarre. Like, is there an offer? There's not an offer. Like, is Jerry just talking to himself in these negotiations? That's why Mike McCarthy just said, you know what, to hell with this. Okay, I've had enough. I think that's what we're dealing with. I think the only thing is this happening because of engagement farming? Is this happening because of incompetence? Is this happening because, a once great football family that could win any negotiation just doesn't care enough about football anymore because they're swimming in billions of dollars? They're drunk on the money of pro sports. A lot of those things could explain it, but they're horribly negligent. And I think what you're pointing out right now is it's costing them win probabilities. That's what this is doing. It's costing them a chance to get everybody on the same page, just like it cost CeeDee Lamb and Dak on offense last year by not getting this done early. It just disappoints me that you'd put it on the player. I thought you'd have your fellow players' backs.
Well, the reason I'm even willing to take this on is because I don't want to believe that the NFL is the WWE. I want to believe that Roger Goodell is winking and smiling when we're talking about scripting things, and that Taylor Swift and wanting female fans and all the calls the Chiefs got. I don't want to believe that it's a real script. Just like I don't want to believe that Jerry Jones is sitting out there being like, hey, Micah, did you watch me on Landman? I'm going to tell you for the next 29 minutes about the Emmy I'm about to win. I don't want to live in that world.
If you ever get a chance, work with your family.
Work with your family. And what I also don't want to do is sit here and write about and talk about and pretend about the culture things like they do or do not matter, and then we get into a place where it's just business. Like that, to me, that's bullshit because it's pointless to talk about anything other than PFF grades. It's pointless to talk about anything than adjusted yards passing or throw out all this because this is how the metrics work and throw on every down. And like to your point about the question that you asked, simply, flatly, and plainly was win, right? That was his answer to what does Dak need or what do the metrics need to look like. And what the most fascinating part of this might actually be is when you talk to your sources and Broadus talks to his sources and we start playing games and scripting our own narrative and thinking about how the hell does Javonte Williams end up? What did Sean Payton say or not say as a friend of the family? Is Miles Sanders the sleeping giant? Is when people are out there tweeting saying that Jaden Blue is the same measurables as Barry Sanders, is this dude all of a sudden going to come? It's not 10, 12, 15 touches. Are they expecting him to be not necessarily a bell cow, but more of the dude? And this just brings it back to the camp battles. And it's less about putting the onus on the player versus the owner when we're talking about a business. Because the number one thing, while J.J. Watt is out there campaigning on TV for T.J. Watt to get paid, is that at the end of the day, the player is going to come into the owner's office and say, I'm a football player. I'm going to sign this deal. I don't want to miss paychecks. I don't want to miss games. I want to be out there with my brothers.
He did that. He did that. That's what Mike is saying. We're trying to debunk that at the fan. But he did that. He talked to Jerry. He's like, cool, we got a deal. I'll call my agent. Let's get this done. Jerry didn't call him. It's wild, dude. It's wild. This is like, maybe the time where the old man starts to get talked about by his family in front of him, type of deal. Whenever I'm around Jerry or I see him publicly, I'm like, man, seems fairly lucid. He's obviously got it going on here. It doesn't seem too bad. He's holding his own in a press conference situation or whatever. But like this is just an inexplicable track record of managerial incompetence, if you ask me. Now, we got a picture of Shoddy right here, New Bear. Let me ask you this. Is the culture thing working? Is that why Micah's at least willing to come do a hold in? Or is this just all a financial move for him? What do you think?
Versus being in Florida like Diggs and all the other different conversations. When I talk about things like worlds they don't want to live in, right? As I've been sitting here in Pittsburgh listening to TJ Watt talk about, bitching about how they're waiting to sign Aaron Rodgers so that he can get paid, or all these other roster moves. And now that we're talking about post June 1 cuts and different things happening, what I hope isn't happening. And the reason that I would push to at least have the conversation and explore it about the player when his brother is tweeting and there's these insane generational wealth, even if you're leaving money on the table, and even if it's only 70% guaranteed, that's $140 million. Like, you can miss me with what he might miss by not doing, right by himself or going to battle with the Jones family. There is going to be an insane amount of money that this dude is going to be totally fine unless he's a complete moron or he gets swindled by every agent that you've mentioned on this show. And what I don't want to do is sit here and go, they need another disruptive defensive tackle. They need a nickel corner. And we're not talking about signing Mike Hilton because we're arguing about those $3, $4, $5 million. We're not talking about Jalen Ramsey a few weeks ago. We're not talking about Jair Alexander right now because they're arguing about what those $3, $4, $5 million might look like if they can go get another one of those guys.
It's great stuff. They have options. They have a window of opportunity right here. I think it is why this summer I'm actually more excited about the Cowboys than ever because of what George Pickens does and what Jaden Blue could do. And Booker, Booker at right guard. The last time the Cowboys took a big jump up was 2014, the year they drafted Zach Martin, and that was a DeMarco Murray year.
Lead draw, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, but it's there for the taking. And if this front office would pull their heads out of their ass, get Micah in here so he can get Eberflus's system worked out and get on the same page with everybody, then we talked about Ezeraku. You have Osa, who's like top 5 in the NFL at pressures, going to an Eberflus system that's even more upfield. If Ezeraku hits, we could be talking about one of the rare pass rush situations that we've ever seen with the Cowboys. Going through my mind, I'm thinking like maybe D. Ware and Anthony Spencer, but even more. I guess that team would have had Jay Ratliff. But then you add DeMarvion Overshone around midseason. If Ezeraku can be that guy, this defense could be nasty enough against the pass. You go out and you spend another $3 to $5 million on a defensive tackle or another linebacker. Maybe Leofau takes a big step in year 2. But damn it, it is there for the taking. And of course, they need a corner. But that's like $15 million of spending. And so as I'm looking at these mini camps, I'm not only looking for players who are breaking out from young to good, but I also need to see the commitment from this ownership group between now and halfway through camp is going to be your window if you really want to improve this roster.
Yeah, and there's going to be more moves that get made. There's going to be guys that are left, quite frankly, if they do break the bank and they do reset the market and they do. Maybe not as crazy as Dak, but even something in that CD range where you're talking about the second guy, and we're talking about $1 million here or there, right, over the course of time. What I was looking back at the corners, for example, everyone knows how great Deron Bland was on paper, 9 picks, 5 TDs, record-setting dude, but he also gave up like 766 yards. He was the second graded cornerback, in that group behind a Bears guy, behind Jalen Johnson, right? Ahead of Sauce Gardner. And as you're looking through that year and you're looking through the guys, Jalen Johnson, ahead of Sauce Gardner, behind Jalen Johnson, ahead of Trent McDuffie, all these different dudes who play all these different ways. And what I'm hoping isn't happening is that we're not getting the best picture, the true picture, the full picture of what this roster could be like, because we're dicking around right now over a few $1 million. If it's not going to be $1 more, it's going to be $1 million or more than Myles Garrett, then let's get it done so we can slot all this other stuff into place and we can start getting excited if it's Mike Hilton coming off the slot, because then we know it's not Parsons, because Parsons is going to be in 4 or 5 other places. And you start talking about those great Giants offensive lines that gave Brady hell in Super Bowls and allowed 9 and 7 career 500 quarterback like Eli Manning to be able to make jokes for the rest of his life.
Man, I love it, New Bear. You're absolutely killing it here. I'm looking forward to more work from you on howboutwow.com. I got some notes for you here from minicamp just to bounce off you, dude. Just to kind of tie this show together. Apparently, George Pickens destroyed Israel Mukuamu, and Minnie tweeted about it, and Tommy Yards from DallasCowboys.com was tweeting about it, and Mukuamu reached out to him on Twitter, so things got a little bit spicy. Cornerback Kyer Elam, acquired via trade, made a splash early with a pass breakup that nearly became an interception. This guy's a massive bust for the Buffalo Bills, but we're talking like maybe there's the possibility of change of scenery, get increased confidence. And he's getting like a PBU every practice. So I know it wasn't a great scheme fit. Then he fell out of favor because there were so many other talented corners there in Buffalo. And maybe it was just like a perfect storm of disaster for him. So we're hoping, fingers crossed, but you know how this is. We got to at least get into the regular season. There's a massive difference from off-season workouts to even preseason.
I mean, the thing about Buffalo is they were ready to win. Josh Allen was he's MVP now, and he was on a arrow up exclamation point where they were tailoring things to put themselves in a position. So they needed that dude to be Jalen Johnson, and maybe he doesn't have 9 picks and 5 interception returns like Deron Bland, but he also only gives up 120 yards for the whole damn season. He's not that guy, and he's not going to be that kind of guy. So can you take the good with the bad? You asked, to go back to your question about Dak and what those metrics might look like, and what do some of the things that popped off the page today. When you start talking about Pickens being able to go over, around, through dudes, and only one of those dudes can be doubled. If you double both, you keep showing the Dez stuff. You've been having so much stuff talking about throwing up the X. You double Dez, someone else has to win. Well, now if you clog and cover, which is one of your other pet phrases, you clog and cover CeeDee Lamb, have fun with healthy George. Seriously, go watch the highlights, not the lowlights. Watch the highlights and dream big. It's not hope, right? It's about how high can this thing go. And for Dak, Dak's been a 69.5 guy. Dak's career 66.8. He's going to put the ball on the front shoulder, unless it's a screen. He's going to put the team in a position. He loves to throw go balls. He loves to throw deep. He loves nines and hitches. And the two dudes that we've been talking about with GP and CD have the ability to take a 5 and go 55, right? Jaden Blue, you get a pulse point. Ferguson, Schoonmaker, 12 personnel. There's a whole lot of fun to be had here.
I'll tell you the most important metric for Dak's success, though. Thanks for bringing that up. Under 30.5 passing attempts. 2014 Tony Romo, 29 pass attempts.
Yeah, so you're talking about 500 for the year, and
less attempts, more yards per attempt. More explosives. And if they're worried about that, you have to be able to punish him in the running game, and that's what the Cowboys haven't been able to do. But they finally took offensive linemen 3 years in a row, and it looks like Tyler Guyton might be coming around. He said all the right things a couple of weeks ago. I guess news this week that he was working with Tyron Smith. Okay, tight end Brevin Spann-Ford rotated with the starters along with Scooney. No Ferg in there. Spann-Ford had his first minicamp reception. He has not been a great catch guy, but he's very strong. I think 270 pounds. Scooney's a good tackler out of Michigan. Fergie is the most dynamic receiving weapon, New Bear, but I think this is telling, that being physical is going to be maybe more important for this team. And I think that's a great sign. Ferguson will always be there if you're down 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter.
I mean, one of the things that teams have a really hard time with when you talk about max protecting is that means the minimum amount of guys are going out to run routes. And when you're talking about 12 personnel and dictating matchups, dictating tempo, committing to running the ball, and then taking play action shots off it, any metric that you look at will tell you that play action passes work even if you're a dog shit run team. It's because the linebacker has to pause for that heartbeat, right? And as you're manipulating levels of the defense, and we're talking about protecting with 6, 7, 8 instead of getting 5 guys out in routes, the really cool thing is that even if it's only 2 dudes running, it's GP and CD. I have fun. So if one of the things that's really one of the stats that's really crazy to look at last year is what was Donald's his loudest run was 27 yards, right? And when you start talking about getting it, 4.6 and mid 4.5s and up a clip without any long gains, Saquon Barkley is going 60 and 80, but he's also taking -2, right? Hurts is going to go rip off a 17-yard when you press and you turn him loose on third down, and then he's going to hook slide and hand the ref the ball. But he's also going to do some weird things where he should have handed it off instead of keeping it, and he takes a -2. Like, that was one of the things that was lost as inefficient or underwhelming as they were as a run team last year, and as bad as their left tackle was. And that dude went Jared from Subway this offseason.
He was top 5. Dowdle was top 5 in run play success rate or something like that. So there was a lot of good to be lot of good to be harvested in there. And the thing I love about what you were talking about, how you can't double both guys, is CeeDee Lamb has already proven he can work around being the focal point of the defense when there was nobody else out there, whether that's going into the slot or beating double teams because he's so good at going up. By the way, Jonathan Mingo, who I am not a believer in, apparently has had several catches today that did get the media buzzing a bit. So you talk about who is wide receiver 3. I think it'll be Tolbert, but really it's Ferguson if they want to, play 2 tight ends and have one of them be a receiving weapon. Tolbert had 49 catches last year, so he did take a step forward. It's unfortunate, with all of these weapons, these guys are going to have massive opportunities, and it's just so hard, New Bear, to be great enough to make plays against NFL defenses.
Well, the picture changes after the snap, and that's why they're experimenting right now, because they want to be able to give Dak as much pre-snap information, especially because he's no longer going to be dictating exactly when he's going to be getting the ball, apparently, with the new snap count. And the more he gets pre-snap and the more that you can do with movement, the more you can do with personnel, the more that your guys can then do, even if the defense makes you wrong with the play call. And then the oh, by the way thing about this is, even if you call the wrong play into the wrong coverage, and it's one dude. What is Joe Shiesty? What does Burrow say? Fuck it. He goes, Chase is down there somewhere, and he throws it up. That's lit. He literally said that at the podium. He dropped an F-bomb and said Jamar's down there, and he just lets it go. And he's got Higgins opposite him, right? And they've had guys like Chase Brown step in after Joe Mixon walks out the door. And they've had, in his career, one of the worst offensive lines supporting him. I mean, if they would have drafted Tyler Booker, they probably win a Super Bowl.
It's so interesting because I know they're going to try to eliminate turnovers as much. Can Dak Prescott have the vision for where to throw that ball, or the courage to say, hey, I might end up with 16 picks, but we're going to make so many of these big plays that it'll be okay. I don't know how you want to manage that, but especially with George Pickens, who I've never seen a player with a greater catch radius than. You got to bring more of that to the game.
You're talking about absolute. It's one-of-one type stuff. What's
it's like Megatron, but with Odell Beckham Jr. ability to spin in the air and get a hand on it.
Yeah, for sure. And you've talked a lot about, and I think the 2023 the playoff game, the wild card game against the Packers was the one that I always go back to, where he had happy feet and he's missing open guys, and everyone wants to talk about, since Jair Alexander got cut, the pick 6 and different plays that dictated that game. What this whole thing is about, and what the experimentation phases are about, is figuring out if you do have the ability from week to week to be multiple, or if you're going to be a hang your hat on it kind of thing. If Sanders were, for example, to be hurt, and you've got Javonte Williams in blue and Maffa, that's a different thing than if Sanders rises and now you got a little bit more juice and you got 2 fast guys, right, with Sanders and blue versus a 3 yards in a cloud of dust guy and blue playing off him. And at the same time, if we know what we're going to get out of Ferg, but now all of a sudden you got these other 2 tight ends, I'm not saying they're going to play a ton of 13 or play more 13 than anybody else, but there's going to be a time where they got to go 4-minute drill and run out the clock. There's going to be a time where they go into a week and another team has injuries up front, but maybe they got really good corners. Maybe they go play Philly and Jalen Carter's out when they come around the second time, and they still got Cooper DeJean and all those dudes running out, but the big beefy dudes up front are a little bit weak. And maybe that's a week that we see Schoon and some of these other dudes come in and just bang heads, and it's ugly.
All right. I mean, that's great stuff, New Bear. I could sit here and talk football with you all night, brother. I really could.
It's the best. I mean, you got me wound up too.
I know.
You called me earlier, and you got me in the yard talking to myself, and then you were like, "Well, if you just want to talk, I'll talk to you."
Yeah, thank you, man. I'm excited, and all minicamp we want to do a show every day to get all the news out for you. So day 1's in the books, day 2 tomorrow.
Schottenheimer.
Okay, so yeah, there's the Schottenheimer thing. Now this is Kent Garrison, brilliant video and graphic producer guy. He works on shows at DallasCowboys.com. He had a breakout, won awards, and he heard us talking on The Fan about the Oppenheimer-Schottenheimer thing that I wrote about at HowAboutWow.com. So Kent sent me this at Gavin Dawson on Twitter. And so New Bear, you and I were going back and forth on this concept of Oppenheimer, Schottenheimer throughout the day, and just how it's kind of interesting how similar it is. And we were speculating on what the winning offensive formula could be. And then you threw out the concept of just calling him Schoppenheimer. And I thought, man, that was perfect. That brought it home. That really crystallizes it.
Mashup, right? Well, and you asked for time. In one of your stories this week, you talked about, let's let the dude build. Let's give him a couple years. Let's see how this thing looks. And one of the things that's so interesting is Micah's, age 26, and some of these guys are still ascending, even though they've won awards, right? Whereas everyone's talking about it, Dak's on the wrong side of 30, and the conversation's a little bit different. How do you optimize him as you find out what you may or may not have in a guy like Joe Milton? And the thing that you keep saying tonight, and what you've been saying over the course of the past couple of weeks, is you're excited, right? And I mean, you're somebody who willingly says you're cynical, and I'm in the race to DFW to the bottom, if you will, of who can be the most cynical about this team. It's really difficult to look at what the 53 and the 46 up, look like on any given Sunday and not be really excited. And that's what's really fun about these conversations.
It is really fun, man. And, I wonder, if year 1 is doable for Schoppenheimer, as we want to call him. It took Oppenheimer 3 years, shoddy, you're looking at putting in a new offense and a new defense. Like, talk about the degree of difficulty of that, New Bear. I just, like, even Mike Zimmer we saw last year, one of the most experienced coaches, had been a DC for decades and a head coach for a decade, and he really struggled to get that installed. So I do think we're going to have to let him go for at least a couple of years before we can really start great returns. But I mean, this year presents such a unique opportunity that I would look at, if I was the front office, like, we have Dak healthy, we have Pickens and Lamb, and we don't know how much longer, this might be the only year we have those two guys. And like, as you said so eloquently back there, we're going to ask such difficult questions to the defense that it's going to have them scrambling. And it'll make it easier to take advantage. Like, having Pickens at $3 million is basically like having a quarterback on a rookie contract, but you only get it for 1 year. You got to put it in hyperdrive and floor that thing and go for it as much as possible. Okay, again, day 1 mandatory minicamp is in the books. Let's see what we get tomorrow. You can get everything at HowAboutWow.com.